Hi, I'm Dave Merlino.
I'm Dustin Sweet, and this is the Know Their Story podcast. We talk to veterans about their time in service, returning home from war, and transitioning out of the military. Hopefully along the way we'll inspire you to do the same with a veteran in your life.
Because sometimes all it takes to make the world a better place is sitting down with a friend to know their story. All right, welcome back, audience. Season 3 of the Know Their Story podcast. I won't butcher it like I did last week because we've been off taking a hiatus from recording. This is the portion where I would kick it over to the esteemed Dustin Sweet. Having trouble doing that because he's having some technical issues with getting onto the internet in lovely Taos, New Mexico. So I can give a pause and we can pretend he's saying something witty, or we'll just move on. Got a great episode coming up today. Our guest served in the United States Army from 1987 until 2012, serving on both Desert Shield and Operation Just Cause. I did ask if he was the one who played AC/DC for Noriega. Unfortunately not. That would be a job where if they came to me and like, Merlino, I need you to blast AC/DC all day, I'd be like, I'm your man. But he was a logistics I gotta talk slower. Logistics Quartermaster, 3rd Battalion, 82nd Artillery, which is under the 1st Cav. Please welcome Sergeant Keith Smithson. Did I get that right?
Yes, you did, Smithson. Yes.
Second week in a row where I forgot to clear last name pronunciation. But thank you for joining us today, Keith. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
So especially, I know you got a busy week. We're talking that you're in the middle of finals for your students. And are finals more stressful for instructors or for students?
Well, Dave, we didn't talk that much. I'm the student. So it's okay. Stressful for me.
Gotcha.
Yes, I'm not the instructor. I look like the instructor, but I'm actually the student.
As soon as I said that, I was like, you know what? I probably should have checked on that. But I guess that answers the question on if they're stressful for you. We won't keep you. We'll let you get back to studying today. Right. So this is where I joke that Dustin has the honorary first question of each episode. He's not going to be able to ask it, so I will. Can you go ahead and let us know, how did you come to join our United States Army?
I grew up in a real small town, rural Virginia, 3,000 people, 2 stoplights. Everyone knows everyone. I had a brother-in-law that was in the Army, so I went with him to work, and just all of a sudden I liked what he was doing. He was actually a supply sergeant, so I'm like, yeah, that's what I want to do. Initially wanted to join the Air Force. The recruiter would not talk to me because I was not a senior in high school. So the Army recruiter came along, made fun of him. Oh, I'm not going in the Army, this and that. And came home, Mom and Dad loved him. So I joined in my senior year of high school, the late entry program. And that was nothing to do with my hometown, long story short.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny. 2 of the guys in our documentary, Ed Beal and Craig Jorgensen, both went to join the United States Marines. Mm-hmm. They're signing up for the Marines. You know, they got the dress blues and everything. And in both cases, the Marine recruiting office was closed for lunch, and the Army recruiter was like, "You want to join them? Come on over here."
Exactly.
So just funny the way things work out.
Yes.
So you get into the Army. You know, head off, do your basic. How long was it until you found yourself in Just Cause, or what was kind of your path through there?
Pretty much a year and a half later on, first airplane out to Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri, Fort Lost in the Woods, Missouri. Did basic training, came back home to Virginia about an hour from where I grew up, Fort Lee, Petersburg. Had guaranteed station of choice right off the bat to Fort Hood, Texas. Got there, hung out, played games in the field every week. It seems like every week. Just Cause came up. They attached me to 411th Military Police Company, 89th Military Police Brigade. And that's when I deployed down in, it was early 89. I want to say January, February 1989. I deployed down to Panama with an MP unit.
Yeah. And I remember the news coverage of it, and that was kind of our first kind of, I don't want to use like known intervention since Vietnam. And it seemed like stateside there was kind of the of like, oh, this is a walk in the park, like we're the US and we're just going to go down, and like no intervention where you're sending in the military is a walk in the park, ACDC aside. Like, what was it, giving a firsthand account for people who think that was, surfing and fun, like what was it like getting in? And
To me, it was a street fight as compared to Desert Shield Storm. It was actually, I don't know what we necessarily trained for. When I went to basic training, I was taught, trained to fight communists. Okay, that was the mindset at that time. Russia was a big threat. And lo and behold, I got there and it was like, I'm in a street fight, I'm with military police. So my supply training pretty much took place with field artillery. We go out to the field, we sit around, they shoot, I play cards. Now I didn't shoot, however, it was a different atmosphere. And I actually lost a friend there, incoming small arms fire. So it definitely touched like, hey, this is reality. This is not a game anymore. This is not a college fund.
Yeah, we don't send the United States military in for
right.
The diplomacy failed somewhere in there.
Yes, a show of force, but definitely had been on the ground. It's a lot different from signing the order to send you there, that's for sure.
Yeah. I just got a notification. Dustin has hopefully solved his issues. I'm going to admit him, but we'll just keep talking while we find out if he actually has audio.
Okay.
But yeah, it is. I mean, we may be a bigger, more superior military force. That doesn't mean there aren't people there who don't want us there, exactly. Are willing to fight for that.
Yes.
All right. The $1 million question. Dustin, can you hear
me?
Can
you hear me? Fantastic.
Yes. We have the technology.
Thanks for joining us.
To quote Batman in the Lego movie, first try.
First try.
So to catch you up, we were just talking about Operation Just Cause, and that no matter what the media coverage was like, it wasn't just a walk in the park down there.
Yeah, there's no business like show business, right? Yeah, that's an interesting mission because there's so many eyes on it, and much like what's going on in Ukraine right now, you can't tell civilians with small arms that you're going to go do a thing if they don't want you to. It's going to be a party, and not everybody likes that kind of party.
So yeah, a inferior military forces bullet hurts just as much as a superior military forces bullet.
Yes.
So how long were you there? I mean,
just 4 months, pretty much, roughly.
Okay. So you've been in the Army, relative to your career, a very short time, gone down to the street fight, lost a friend.
Mm-hmm.
Now you're back. Like, what was that transition like for you to come back? I mean, obviously you stayed in the Army, but to come back from that and to have, a stateside civilian population that didn't really follow what happened or care or think it was that big a deal, because
it really was not a transition. I don't know if that's because I was attached to another unit. I mean, pretty much, Dustin, I went over as a supply clerk attached to a military police unit. I'm assigned to a field artillery unit at Fort Hood. So when I got by, it's like, hey, 4-day weekend, see you Tuesday. And It wasn't like when you come back as a unit deployment, you sit down, you go through debrief, you go through physical, you go through whatever you need to go through. That was nothing. I mean, I took 4 days, I'm 19, 20 years old. And yeah, you can imagine what I did. I had a great time, but I was clear headed on Tuesday morning. So that's all that mattered at the time. But yeah.
Did they give you that deployment bonus check right away, or kind of
No, that was no. I mean, I think I got a RCOM or something out of deployment, and that was pretty much it. So,
Wow.
I don't remember the tax thing at that time, to be honest with you. I know for later on that was a tax exempt for Desert Shield, but for Panama, I don't remember that taking place. Maybe I was just too young to care.
The government Eagle dropped an egg in your bank account. And
Yeah.
so, but yeah, okay. So your debrief was take 4 days to get your head straight, be here Tuesday, huh?
Yeah, pretty much, because I was like, once I got back, I didn't know anyone at that unit except the ones I had been with at that time. So I mean, pretty much I was a lone wolf. I was on my own. You know, I didn't belong to them. The deployment was over, so that was it. Later on, like I said, I got a RCOM and a shotgun envelope. That was it.
The unit that you went over to, had they been deployed or were they a stateside unit?
That was a stateside unit out of Fort Hood. 89th MP Brigade had 401st, 410th, and 411th MP companies. So
Okay.
I went with 411th.
Did you, when obviously you're meeting people for the first time, but as someone who had been deployed, was that, I mean, we talked to the guys from Vietnam who said, you know, they went to Europe and answering to lieutenants who, I mean, obviously Vietnam's, you know, that was the thing of the day, but they had a hard time answering to lieutenant who'd been sitting in Germany, well, you know, and never deployed while they were in Vietnam for a year. And not saying it's to that extent like it was in the 70s, but was there even a little bit of a gulf for that for you, or just?
No, because this was my first deployment. Just Cause was my first deployment. So I had no idea except I'm on loan to you. This is who I report to, and that's pretty much it. I
Right, so
report, I was a PFC E3, so I report to the supply sergeant, whatever he told me to do. That's what I did, just like in the other unit. But I didn't look at I wasn't really worried even when the friend got shot, because it was kind of a, I don't want to say a freak accident, but it was kind of being in the wrong place at the wrong time. You know, he took small arms fire. So I mean, I didn't really feel that, I didn't directly see it, so it didn't directly affect me. I mean, of course, we were all aware of it, but that was never a big event surrounding that, I guess you say.
Yeah. So then, you know, you have a little bit of time to chill in the Army, and then Desert Shield comes along, and that was a bigger that the media treated a bit differently. I mean, that was I remember my wife, actually, her uncle was he was one of the first fighter squadrons that was sent over there, and she vividly remembers him coming back from that out at Fairchild. But you know, you've been deployed before, the orders are coming in, you're going back. Like, what is your thought process on your second deployment to a different conflict in a different part of the world, at a different age? Yeah, you have some more life experience, maturity, recognition of your mortality that you don't have in your 20s.
It was crazy, and I have to laugh because we were actually at Six Flags outside Dallas, because it was like a unit organizational fun day, and they made the big announcement. You know, 3rd Battalion, 82nd Field Artillery from Fort Hood, please report to the whatever, we're to get back on the bus. And it was like, what's going on? Because as you all probably remember, I mean, when Desert Shield was kicking off August of 90, it was like, it was a major event. You know, it's like, in my opinion, at 2090, I was 21 years old. And it was like, whoa, this is it. And I had 2 brothers serving. So that's when they actually said, hey, you know, something about the sole surviving son, you all have an option to not do this, not do that. We were not at the same unit, but we all were like, you know what, we're gonna do what we're supposed to do. But not to take anything away from anyone, but it just seems like when I went to Just Cause, it was a, hey, you on loan, you going with them for a few months. When I went to Shield, it was like, I felt this was something major. I mean, 21 years old, not knowing, I felt like it was an all-out war initially taking place.
Were you still in supply?
Yes, I was in supply the whole time.
How was that? How was that ramp up? That seemed like, I mean, that's one of the things I remember thinking about as a kid in high school. What's that supply chain like in order to get everything? Like that's a huge undertaking what we did there. And then in a place where there's not a lot of air support, or, you know, I mean, it's got problems, right? Which I imagine you know more about.
We drove from Fort Hood down to Houston, Texas, Galveston to the port. And that's when you found out that maintenance was very important, because my deuce and a half, we broke down, you know, different, whatever case, like most convoys, you had the maintenance truck following you behind. but we had to drive, I forget how many hours from Killeen, from Fort Hood to Houston, Galveston. But we drove everything down. We rail loaded. They had a team to rail load stuff on railroads and had stuff to put it into the ship, put it on aircraft, like you just mentioned. We weren't down for that process. That was like I guess you say a detail. I was in supply. I was only myself and my boss, so I didn't get on details too much. I was lucky. You know, the artillery guys, so forth like that. You got hundreds of those. Those are the ones who did all that. But I want to say it was I don't want to say chaos, but the thing that happened with us, we were going through a change of command. So the battery commander knew he couldn't account for all his equipment. So it was a lucky break for him because everything got put on, like you said, aircraft, ships, so forth and so on, and it went across the pond. So now we're over there, you got a real detachment back here. So pretty much the commander lost control of their equipment. So little small things that, hey, where's this? Oh, it's in the Gulf. You know, oh, it's here, it's there. With the time difference, but you all can imagine, logistics. I mean, I was a small piece. I was a battery supply clerk. Right. But when you look at the overall moving 3 Corps and Fort Hood, 18th Airborne Corps, all these different divisions, it was definitely major. It was major to get the equipment there. And not to talk too much, Dave and Dustin, but what happened once we left, some of the equipment that was, I guess you said, getting older, may have had some maintenance issues here and there. That's the equipment we left in place. So therefore, the following deployments, as we know, went on for years, Corps managed that equipment. So it was easier to get a force there quicker and draw equipment from on site.
Cool. Yeah.
Is the old supply and logistics sergeant in you kind of laughing as you watch Russia break down like 40 miles into a neighboring country running out of gas and food?
Yeah.
And here you managed to get stuff halfway around the world.
Yeah. Might want to prepare a little bit. I'll leave that alone, but might want to fill up the house.
Yeah.
It's a lot of socks to move.
Yes.
So what is it? Or go ahead.
What was the most requisition thing that people asked you for during your time? Like, what was the most sought after item?
There was toilet tissue. That was pretty much it. Toilet paper, chem lights, acetate markers, combat acetate, because you had a lot of charts and things, which I can only imagine what they're doing today. But at that time, everything was on paper. So yeah, your plans and stuff was very important.
Yeah. And that there is the phrase in the military, gear adrift is a gift.
Yeah.
And a lot of as one of our guys, RB, called it, drug deals going on of trading equipment. As a supply guy, you just kind of accept that and turn the other, or what's that like?
I just knew how to get pound cakes. I knew how to get my leave form when I get back to the States, push through, because you need me. I might just be old supply weenie, but at the end of the day, when you can't run to Walmart and Target, we're in that environment. You need me, buddy.
Yep.
I mean, then we went downtown, a lot of stuff we brought on the economy. Of course, we had credit cards to able to go out and buy local stuff, because obviously, I wasn't familiar with a supply requisition system from Kuwait back to, Saudi Arabia back to here. So.
Right.
Yeah. I imagine the paperwork in the Army for stuff like that is voluminous.
Yes. Because as you know, you have what do you call it, expendable, which is like we just mentioned, toilet tissue, this and that. Okay, it's where if you use it up, using whatever. Then you have the non-expendable, which is obviously the objects that you have to keep accountability. But what a lot of people don't understand, even those expendable items, you still got to account for them. You brought 500 rolls of toilet tissue. Where did he go? So
the latrines.
Yeah.
It's on the colonel's front yard in his tree. He's not going to be excited about it.
Exactly. Yeah.
So to give our civilian listeners kind of, and I know this isn't an exact question that could be answered, but the scope of moving an army around like that, like most people, obviously we know we need to get the tanks over there and we need to get the airplanes, all of the other stuff, like how much toilet paper or just like the food to feed an army like that, what kind of scale are we talking on?
I don't know numbers, but I know we had a basic load plan that everyone followed. For example, supply had a 2.5 ton truck, which was called a deuce and a half M35 A2, and we loaded it. We put the canvas on the back, the tarp, everything that was in the supply room, everything that was in the connex in the motor pool, it went on the back of vehicles. Those vehicles, as we said, went on Navy ships. Well, actually, that's when I found out the Army had ships, 7th Group, Fort Eustis. And they took a lot of our equipment, and the Air Force, the Army, we all got together and the stuff flew. And like I said, it got there. We went to the port. I believe it was, I want to say Daharan. We picked it up from the port, and we started driving through the desert on the free interstate, whatever you want to call it, the highway. And pretty much, like I said, everything was there. When it came to some things like sensitive items like night vision goggles, things like that, that was a real attachment that the commander would get back. And it seems today like get back in contact. Why didn't you just tweet him? No, as you all know, that wasn't possible. But when he had, I think they call it the Mars phone system, where you talk, you let it repeat, blah, blah, blah. Those commanders will have access to call back and say, hey, send us here, send us there. But it definitely was a process, weeks and months, getting stuff that you left behind.
Wow.
So it was critical to be on top of your game and take what you need.
Yeah, my daughters are, they just, age 15, cannot wrap their minds around the fact that there was no internet when I started college. I remember like the internet, like, oh my God, what is this thing? We can play games. And of course, that's the first thing at college, like, oh, games.
Yep, software.
Yeah, and that there was no, like, what do you mean there was no cell phones? Like, and it's not like today where you just, like you said, send a tweet and like, hey, I need this stuff.
What's the point? We get so used to it too. Like my mom was coming to visit me like 2006 in Oakland, and she's like, my phone's running out of power, and I was like, okay, well, I'll meet you at the BART station at 2:00. She's like, well, how do we do that? And I'm like, Mom, we did this like my whole life. Like we're gonna figure. There's clocks, there's places. We'll meet there.
Or even Dustin and I, when we were in New Orleans last week and had to drive up to Natchez, Mississippi, and just plugged the address into our map, into our phone and went. We were talking about how when we drove around the country for the movie, like, man, can you imagine doing this with just Thomas guides?
Really? Exactly.
Looking up the grid coordinates and I want to go find an old Thomas guide to show my girls, like, okay, I want you to find this address just for the laughs. Maybe I'll record it.
Right, exactly.
So, but you mentioned you were over at Desert Shield for 18 months. When you came home, you still were in the Army for quite a while.
Yes.
But for the podcast, we like to talk about that transition back to civilian life. But actually, I'll pause. 18 months in Iraq, it's got to be a little different than 4 months in Panama. Was that a different feeling coming home?
Well, it was different, but Dave, what happened was I was there from September of 90 until March of 91 as part of the Shield and Storm. I'm about to Fort Hood, Texas. My time was up in the Army. So I called up to Pentagon, thought I was going to making friends, and said, what can you offer me? They said F1, Army needs. So they said Kuwait, something and something. I want to say Fort Bragg, Fort something else. I was like, Kuwait. They started laughing in the background, like, hey, we gotta go. I'm like, okay, this is interesting. But that was actually one of the best kept secrets, because what happened once I was there, a so-called permanent assignment, I had a half of a trailer to myself, TV, VCR, which was luxury at that time, the penthouse. So yeah, it was not, the war had so-called ended then. As you all know, it ended around March, but because I was supply, I was advanced party to get back and get barracks set up for the troops coming back. To answer your question, transitioning back, once again, there was no, I remember landing at Fort Hood in the gym. The LT's wife had beer for everyone, just pretty much one beer out the cooler she gave us. We had a big ceremony. I jumped in my vehicle right away leaving Fort Hood, leaving Texas, driving to Virginia. Got to North Texas, Kilgore, outside of Dallas, flipped over a few times, total lost the vehicle. They came out, it had nothing to do with alcohol or anything. I mean, the one beer, I was way long sober after that. It's just the time difference, the excitement. You know, we all know when you come back from something like that, you need it's a 9 hour, 7 or 8 hour time difference. Your
Right.
mind is, adrenaline is flowing. You're not thinking smart. It's something that for life, for the years I did, it's not a fear, but it's an awareness when I go places. I don't sit with my back to a door.
Mhm.
I'm very vigilant on things in my community, my neighborhood. I mean, they call me the neighborhood watch here because you leave your garage open, I'm gonna text you. You know, I mean, it's an experience that I'm a lot older now, but at that young age, I want to say that was not a lot of guidance, or if the guidance was given, but I didn't listen. And we probably have learned from that because now instead of just saying, "Hey, promise me you're not going nowhere tonight," no, we make sure you don't go nowhere for a few days. I know my son came back and he had a very long debrief process. So yeah, it was nice to get back to your freedom, but I didn't know how to handle the freedom at the time. So
Yeah, that is, like you said, the 8 or 9 hour time difference. It's not like you flew home first class either on Emirates or anything.
no, Tower Airlines definitely not.
Yeah. So I remember clearing a lot of the military flights and customs, and they definitely make use of the space that is provided.
Mhm.
I'll put it that way for a visual for people.
Yes.
So, um, but so after you get out of the army, like what did you transition to as a civilian? What was your path?
That was a hard that's definitely a story because military I answer questions the right way when it came to use of alcohol. And I'm just gonna be honest with you. When I filled out the questionnaire about alcohol use, I knew the right blocks to check. I knew what not to say, what to say, and I was a functioning alcoholic, to leave it at that. So I retired 2012. Got a civilian job, take a little nip every morning, a little nip at lunch. After, did very good in that job. Finally, one day I just decided, hey, this is not me anymore. So I continued with the drinking. Had nothing to do now besides drink and cook all day. About 4 years ago, I completely gave that up, and now I work out every morning. I'm in school, as you know, full time. So pretty much, I would say you got to have a purpose because for me, my day, I was getting pat on the back for my service. Thank you, thank you, thank you. But once again, I was managing that. I thought I was managing alcohol, but it was managing me, and my family could definitely see it. Never a late bill, never a, what do you call it, domestic issue with the family. But in other ways, it was killing me inside, my health and things like that. So it was one of those things that once you walk away, you got to keep that band of brothers. You got to keep that person you reach out to. It doesn't have to be the movies we see on TV that's so dramatic. It can just be a simple text in the morning. Hey, how's it going? Have a good day. And if I don't hear from Dave today, it's like, oh, hey man, I text you, it didn't send. Okay, I'm just checking on you. And those little things, that's what keeps me accountable now. I have all the time in the world to drink if I want, have no desire to. Um, I work out every morning regardless of weather. I'm not in Spokane or New Mexico though, so I mean I do gotta, know. But I mean it's just the transition, you get used to a lifestyle, and there's a lot of great things that you can take away from that lifestyle, the fitness, the mental stability. But what I would say to anyone, like I said to my boys, it's okay to share. It's okay to be real with people. It's okay to show a weakness, if you want to call it that. It's actually strong to speak up and say you need help with something.
Man.
Yeah, and wanna, something you said, having worked for the government, I always knew, I mean, it's such a monolith that you are, if you say the wrong thing, it's going to get telephoned up the line till they think, oh my God, like, it, and it, usually can be more career crippling than career helping if you admit anything. And like you're saying, the right answers to say on the boxes, and this is probably going to be more of a thought exercise, because obviously the three of us aren't going to solve the Army's problems in the span of one podcast.
Never know.
maybe, the simplest solutions sometimes are the best, but it seems to be that catch-22 of the Army tries to help, but it's also a massive bureaucracy. I remember one of our guys, Jim Brown, was saying when they came back from Vietnam, they're asking the questions, but everyone, you're just in Vietnam for a year and they want to go home. So everyone's like, I'm okay. I'm okay. I'm okay. And then the Army looks up and be like, you said you were okay. How are ways that we can bridge that gap of, the Army, I know, is trying. They actually are trying very hard. Fort Hood, where we talked about, they have, they have a wellness program, and they have the pillars of good living and transit. So I give them credit. They are trying. They recognize there's a problem. But if you were talking to Army, people in the Army running these programs, or veterans, like, any suggestions on ways that we can bridge that gap to be able to talk about problems we're having while serving, rather than
I believe
get out?
I believe that it's being addressed completely now. I mean, in reality, because once again, I had 3 sons to serve after I got out. One is still serving. And some of the things that they told me, I was like, what? Because I'm what they call one of those dinosaur leaders. I mean, I lead from the front, hey, still on target, this and that. But I've seen things that my sons have gone through. I've seen things that they've been exposed to. I've seen realistic stand down days, not keep your phone on so I can reach you, not this, not that. I've seen people be able to speak up with mental health or with a concern and not be stigmatized. Have they made E8 or E9? I have no idea, because I have no need to track them. However, I believe the mental health for all of us now, as a citizen, we realize reality. Whether it's in a school environment, whether it's in a job, whether it's in the military, I think people now are very much taking it seriously. So I believe that the newer leaders, the new regime, are definitely tackling these problems. Military is made up of society. So yes, we're going to have the problems that come in, but how we address them is definitely how it's going to impact others. So are we fail safe, 100% perfect now? Military, we all know the answer to that is not true. But those of us on here, everyone else, we just got to know how we address the problem, and not just, as you say, okay, hey, I got a phone call just now, check 1, 2, 3, I did my job as a leader. I'm done. No, we need to follow up. We need to go beyond the black and white rule book and show some heart, show some concern.
Yeah,
which is hard, right? Because we're talking about the Army, right? You're going to lose some of those guys.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's a real piece there where you want to keep everybody kind of at arm's length. So you love them, but there's only so much you can deal with, because they could just be gone in an instant. So it's an interesting problem to fight with.
Yes.
For sure. Yeah, and I like what you're saying. It's not just one way to go about it. It's not a form that you go down. I mean, as a comical aside, we follow the Randall Wallace School of Filmmaking of every down moment has to have an upbeat moment. My wife's company, I won't say which one, because they might misconstrue what I'm saying. They decided to do, they're an auditing company. They decided to kind of come up with forms to help walk people through the audits and try and find a more standardized way to do it. And they called them smart docs. And I was like, those are dumb docs. Like, because all they're going to do is make your people dumber. She's like, what do you mean? Like, because they're going to be like, I checked off the boxes. And she's like, I'm being told to do it. I'm like, I'm going to wait. And now a couple of years later, some of their higher ups are complaining, or people don't seem to be able to problem solve as well. Like, I have a theory. You don't want to hear it.
Right.
So yeah, it is. It's you know, even for customs, we're talking about 40,000 armed officers, another 10,000, you know, whatever the numbers are now today, probably unfortunately less than when I was in. You're talking about an agency of 50,000 people spread out not only across this country, but in Europe and in, you know, South America. And every single person that I talked to cared and wanted to do the best. But when you start putting it all together, it just became a massive, just money wasting, like it's really weird to look at. On the ground, everyone's trying their best. Put it all together, it's a total inefficient, bloated mess. And now you're talking about the military with bases, how, you know, almost everywhere, and deployment.
When you look at that, I mean, unfortunately, I came in the yell, curse, scream era that, you know, you do what the hell I say when I said, you don't ask questions, this and that. But as I became a leader, it took a while for me to realize that your trust, your respect for me, you respect me as a man, as an individual. Okay. That gives me a lot more leeway, a lot more accountability with you, a lot more leadership ability than because I'm an E5, because I'm an E6. So for me, I had to learn, and I love talking. So I had to actually sit back sometimes, let other people talk and observe from afar to see this is a way to lead. Because when you look back at it, I recruited 16 out of those 25 years. Very few people joined the Army because someone truly made them, you know, because, oh, they was getting ready. We don't even do to go to Army or go to jail anymore. So when you sit here, this young soldier wanted to be here. So if you as a leader let them come to you, oh, I don't care, do this. No, what's really going on? Talk to me. Oh, but nobody cares because I failed my fitness test. Why would you feel that way? You know, if you let them sit down and share 9 times out of 10, I won't say 9 out of 10 because I'm in statistics right now, so let's not go there. But I would say majority of the time, that person like, you know what, I would love to stay in the Army, but I just can't do da da da. So I mean, I don't think the military, I know the military is not filled with bad people. It's just some leaders don't take the time to listen to what's really going on. Yes, there are some. Go ahead and shake their hand, thank you for your year or two, let them do what they want to do. But everyone chose freely. So for the most part, they want to be there.
Yeah.
And even if they're leaving after that 1 or 2, let's do the right thing and get them the benefits and what they have earned.
Yeah. It's
Well,
no draft anymore.
What was that, Dustin?
Oh, I said just if you can't leverage the guys wanting to be there, then you're doing something super wrong, right? Like if you know, I mean, I can speak for myself. When I want to be doing something, man, I'm all in. I'm up early. I'm there. You know, you were talking earlier about purpose. You know, when one of the things the military provides in a really nice way is this exterior purpose of providing safety and security for our country, right? And they're kind of like large ideas for one kid to wrap his head around, but they are those ideas, and that is what all those guys are following. And
Exactly.
It's an important piece, man.
Yeah, and you know, there's the old adage, it's cheaper to keep an employee than to hire a new one. As someone who works recruiting, like what's the breakdown like in terms of the number of people who walk through the door compared to the number of people who actually sign the dotted line, compared to the number of people who actually then make it through basic? Like what's the attrition rate? I mean, that's got to be a grind and a hustle.
I left in 12. My son's recruiting right now in Minneapolis Battalion, but I would say before I left out of recruiting command, 1 out of about 244 people actually qualify to join the Army. Okay, we have to understand that there are a lot of things that we weren't treated for that people are treated for these days. There's a lot of exposure to things going on that can cause a reaction, can cause this, can cause that. So 1 out of 244 who actually say that I want to do this, it's my lifelong passion, will qualify. Now, as far as what you were saying, once they get in, I don't know how many wash out, because another thing we were dealing with was the basic training. Very, very, very doable these days. However, if you're not a person that's been moving a lot growing up, just like with us as retirees or veterans, whatever we are, you don't move a lot, things start stiffening up. You start getting injuries when you go back out. You know, the season kicks off. So when you look at the injuries, you look at the they have done a great job. In fact, as I just talked to my son last week, we have something on live scan. So they have done a great job of, like, back in our day, hey, you got away from the cops for a few weeks. They find out you at Fort Jackson, they come to get you. So the moral things are pretty much over and done with now. Those are brought out before you ever sign on a dotted line. The medical, they just revamped something to actually request people's medical records, irregardless. Whereas in my days, it was like if you said, hey, I played football, okay, I need your medical records. Now it's pretty much a blanket. So it's very hard to put someone into the military. I can't speak for the military, but I can speak for the Army. The attrition rate, I would say, is getting a lot less than what it used to be, because once again, the moral is gone, the medical is gone for the most part. You don't wait until you get down to Fort Benning, it's 110 to find out you got asthma, like it used to. You knew you had it, so you're not getting in, whatever the case. And I don't want to throw out asthma, because there are things that you can get a waiver exception for. So I don't want someone to listen and say, hey, that guy said asthma. That's not what I'm saying. But to answer your question, attrition rate has gotten a lot less. But also, I think that's a concern about the propensity to want to serve.
Yeah.
How many of us grow up and say, hey, I want to be like Uncle Dave. He was this, he was that. I don't know. I think the propensity to serve is leaving a lot of people, and it's propensity for how much money I get for college. What kind of bonus.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. I mean, I know Seattle, they fired hundreds of officers over the last couple of years between defund and vac status. Sorry, my screen just went weird. But now they're like, oh my gosh, that might have been a mistake. Let's hire more officers. And I'm like, that's easier said than done these days. Like, you're going to have to go find those recruits. People ask me would I let my daughters be in law enforcement. I'm like, well, there's no let. They are their own people.
Exactly.
My daughters can do what they want, but yes, I would have a very long counseling, heart to heart with them about that. And it is a different, I totally agree with you, a different generation in terms of viewing service and stuff like that. Something that has to be broken through a little. And part of that could be, there is, as the years have gone by, more of definitely a split track of, we've been at war for 20 years and it hasn't really affected many people's lives outside of the military. It's hard to, it's weird to think about. Like, we were in the Middle East for 20 years actively at war. Sorry, I gotta take a drink. My voice is going. Dustin, you're up.
Keith, how are you enjoying being a college student?
Oh, I'm enjoying it, really.
Yeah.
I have fun because of the life experience is one thing. I will say I've learned to appreciate though youth for the simple fact. I have the discipline. If you tell me an assignment is due Friday, I'm going to do it Monday.
Yeah.
Reason being, I got to fight technology. I got to fight PDF, MS Word, everything else. They want to jump on my back. Whereas a lot of my classmates, they have the ability to come in tonight and log on at 9:30 and submit it before midnight. And I used to complain and talk about it, but I realized when I do have an issue, I'm able to go on Messenger and say, hey, can you send me a video, show me how to do this?
Yeah.
So I'm enjoying the experience. Of course, I talk in class because sociology is a lot of, racial, ethnic, gender, different things that I've experienced to say, hey, I'm aware of this. I know what redlining is, for example, different things. So it's been a great experience. I've made a lot of friends because even though I don't think I know what I'm doing, for some reason, people want to chat with me on Zoom. They want to, and I've been maintaining a 3.8. So I'm really enjoying it.
Nice.
Excellent. Having come from the military, though, where the language is a bit looser, what is it like in the college environment? Is pretty tight on language these days, should I say?
Yeah, I've definitely, like I said, had to learn thank God I went sociology, because I've had to learn a lot of things that I thought was a joke or not a joke. A lot of things you say to a person because, that's my boy, used to be in the Army. No. That's, if you and me talking offline on the campus, one-on-one, but sitting in the classroom saying something that because two veterans think it's funny in a class with 90 people, it's just not it's not good vibes. So I've learned to be myself, but I've learned to respect and then everyone else, whether they believe what I believe or not. I've learned you're your individual and doesn't make you wrong. That's if that's anything I've learned out of 4 years of college, that's my biggest takeaway is what you feel is just different because you were raised different from me. It does not mean you're wrong. Going in, coming out the military, man, you crazy, because I had my belief. I'm an old country boy, and I believe this is the way things should be.
Right.
So
Yeah, I am surrounded, and Dustin's surrounded by, he's the only male in his house as well with daughters. My daughters are freshmen now, and they'll come home and be like, oh my God, this guy said this, one of the boys said this to the other boys. And I'm just like, classic. And then I noticed that my wife and daughters are staring at me in horror. And I'm like, that's kind of the way guys talk. And the more I talk, I realize I can't defend this. So I'm going to stop.
yeah.
So yeah, there's a bit different humor level in law enforcement and the military than today's college campuses.
Exactly.
Dustin learned that when he went up to talk at Seattle U.
Oh my God. Oh, that you use that? That's brutal.
I set up a speaker series before COVID for the film program for people to come in. We called it Lunch Bites because it's hard to get college students out before or at night, and so we're like, hey, there's this period of time where there's no class and college students love free pizza, so we'll bring in some free pizza.
That worked out real well.
Yeah, have a speaker series. It was going well until they closed down campus. But Dustin went in to talk and he said it wasn't even that bad, but one of the kids was like, I'm sorry, could you please not use that word? And I'm in the back just laughing at him, which probably didn't help him get
it totally threw me off my game too, because I was in the middle of talking about a thing, and oh man, I was just like, oh yeah, I guess that's a thing.
A lot has changed recently because even myself as a recruiter, I had to be prepared when I'm walking down the hallway. Hey, somebody come talk to my students. I had to be able to talk to 9th grade, 12th grade, special education, anything, and not get up there and say, oh, well, none of you in here 17, so I don't have time for you. So I already knew how to do that. But now coming to college, it is still different because I'm with adults now and I still have to say, don't say this or don't laugh at that situation because it's sensitive to someone. It may be funny to you where you come from, or like you said, maybe in the orderly room around the first sergeant commander.
Right.
But in this environment, it is completely not. It's not even something to comment on. You don't want to be associated with it, period.
Yeah. Has anyone ever tried to ask you what dark military humor is like? Or I get that all the time from other screenwriters, like, hey, what's dark humor like in law enforcement? I've never been able to explain it.
No, I was actually very surprised that because on my Zoom I have U.S. Army retired logo on my shirt. I have my profile says everything. And I'm like, you know what? I did this. I'm not going to be ashamed. And my school is very receptive. I don't take over the lecture, but when a professor is talking about something, once again, if he or she asks me to elaborate on it, and people are very like, wow, I didn't know this, I didn't know that, because there's so much that people don't know about the Army because of movies.
Right.
And it's nice to be able to elaborate and answer questions and talk to people. And I'm still a part of what they call Army Partnership Recruiting Council. So I love supporting the recruiting command. I love talking about how good the Army is. I believe it.
No. Do you have a favorite? Is there a good movie that you think, okay, they kind of got some stuff right in there? Or?
No, I wouldn't say that. I like Full Metal Jacket, so no, that's not a movie that I would want to tell someone, hey, you think about joining the military? Check out this movie. But that's one of my favorite. That and Major Payne.
So, oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
You gotta see this film.
So
I don't think that's gonna fly.
Actually, I did see one recently though, on a more serious note. I wish I could think of it, that the guy did. He came back from Iraq. You guys may have seen Iraq, Afghanistan. He was going through a whole lot. The guy was really God, I wish I could think of the name of that movie. It wasn't Long Way Home. I don't remember what it was. But it was definitely a realistic, touching movie. It wasn't over the top dramatic. But I mean, they went out to a bar and some dude started joking with him something about being a killer or something. And yeah, it was very realistic, in my opinion.
All right.
All right. When you remember, you gotta send me.
Yeah, I have to look back. I don't know if it's in my history on my phone because I'll use Cinemark and a lot of times they have your purchase history.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, just send me a text or email and we'll put it out for people.
Okay.
I know that you got to get back to your studying and you have something else coming up, another engagement for school. So I'll ask you, we've kind of touched along this in terms of advice for other veterans or soldiers getting out. We also like to ask if you have any advice for family members who, you're encouraging veterans, it's okay to talk, it's okay to say, this is bothering me. For family members, if they want to talk, or if a veteran approaches them, do you have any advice how they could go about that conversation?
Listen. I mean, that's what we all say every day. Listen to what the person is saying to you. As you see, I speak quick, which is not always a good thing. I mean, I like it because I'm sincere. That's the way I operate with people. However, you might need to sit down and listen because there's assumptions that veterans have certain things, and that's not always true. I started recently actually volunteering security at my church, and they just went right through the fingerprint process, like, oh, he's a veteran. Not necessarily true. I mean, other people waited on board after their stuff came back. Mine was like, oh yeah, he's a vet. Just because you're a veteran does not mean you don't have emotions, you don't have feelings. Obviously someone comes to you in your environment and say, hey, I'm thinking this. Oh man, you used to be a killer. No. Okay. Listen to what the person is saying because we're dealing with so much in life these days that your career probably didn't prepare you for it. We're dealing with stuff going on that I never thought in my lifetime I would see. I mean, wearing a mask around somebody every day and this and that, not being able to go places, not being able to socialize with family, with friends. It's just a lot. The wars here, the things there, it's a lot going on. So, most recently the Afghanistan situation, I mean, that affected a lot of people. So bottom line is when someone comes, whether you've been in or not, you need to try to listen to them. I would say don't push them into a psych's office, psychiatrist chair right away. Listen to what they have to say. They may just want to talk to you. And you may come to a happy medium with that and you can follow up with that person. Definitely I will go back and follow up.
Yeah. And you'd be amazed just that first talk, being able to open up the spigot, and let them realize like, hey, that actually kind of felt good. Maybe I do want to take the next step. It's an amazing, we saw it time and again while filming the movie, that first little spigot. I mean, some of the guys we talked to had never, ever talked about Vietnam in 50 years. It just been inside. And then, I mean, it was, I'm not going to lie and say it was the easiest thing I've ever done. It was intense, but man,
it was also just sitting and listening to another guy talk. It's not. It's interesting. I've been thinking a lot about time lately, and how much we spend preparing for the next thing or waiting for the future, the next piece to come along, or talking about what we used to do, and instead of being really present with right now, which is the only real piece we have, right, is this moment. And I keep thinking about like what kind of ways we can structure our way of thinking about it to be more present. It's probably because I have little kids right now, and so I'm really enjoying, the part where my daughter's 3, and so I'm like really trying to have that because that's not ever coming back, right? So it's really present for me, and so I just wonder if maybe we couldn't get more people thinking about, especially in the conversational piece, to be really more present with the people around them. Listening is its own skill,
You hit the nail on the head, Dustin. I had to have my wife tell me several times that, like I said, I had 3 sons to serve. And whenever we got to talking to them, it's exciting to me to talk to veterans. I'm like, yeah, me and my brothers, we talk. But my son will come home and say, or he'll be on the phone, hey, this happened, that. Oh, yeah. Like mine right now is in recruiting. It's so hard when he starts to say something. I want to finish the conversation. I want to, man, I remember when I was acting first on We This, We That. No, the last 6 months, a year, I've actually had to actually just be quiet and hear him tell me how his day went in recruiting, how his day went in the intel field, whatever the case is. One of them was in communications. I had to sit down because for me, when you mention Fort Hood, I'm automatically ready to just take the conversation, tell you everything about it, from the ranch to your gate to the east gate to a pizza shop on whatever. And once again, I've missed the boat so many times because I'm hyper. I love to talk. People, I believe, like to engage with me. But sometimes when I actually get quiet and let another person talk, you'll be surprised what comes out of that. And it's not bad things, but they just want to really share with you. They just want to finish their conversation. In the case with my son, my wife's like, honey, every time he talks, you take over. So I had to really sit by and let him tell me his whole story and then respond, okay, yeah, that happened to me in recruiting as well. So, like you said, when you engage with a veteran or a family member, I would just, if they start, oh, Fort Hood, oh, I saw that on TV. You know what? Just forget it. I don't even want to talk about it. So I've had to learn, when you start talking about Fort Hood, let you say what you want to know about Fort Hood. Yeah. Then we can mention what's going on the news or whatever. So.
Yeah, it is. We as humans have a innate desire to want to connect and say, oh yeah, I have that connection, but it sometimes got to remember, like, let them finish their part. I'm guilty of the same thing. Got the Italian heritage in me that wants to use my hands and talk, and like, okay, calm. So you're talking about wearing masks. It's totally unrelated. This will be a funny story on the way out. I was at an ATM a couple months ago. Car pulls up, driver stays in the car. Someone else gets out of the driver's seat, puts on a mask, walks in the bank. And I thought to myself, you know what? That would have been, there was a time that would have looked really weird.
Yes. Yeah. Yes.
So now it's just normal every day. Mm-hmm. So at least for a couple more days, masks are going away in Washington and California on Friday. Yeah. So
sorry, down here in New Mexico.
All right.
Leave my life on Friday, which is I'm pretty excited about.
Nice. All right. Well, Keith, thank you so much for joining us. This was wonderful. Really enjoyed talking. Thank you for sharing your experiences. To the audience, thank you for being with us again. We're in our third season and you guys are still with us, and we are very appreciative of that. We were two guys who, I was talking to Keith earlier, we'd been on one podcast before we started this, and you guys have been with us through our learning curve. So
you feel like that curve's over, Dave? I don't really feel like that curve's over.
I was, I was pretending. Thank you. But thank you to the audience. You can tell your friends, like I always say, tell your enemies if they'll listen. I don't really care. Give us a like and a follow, whether you're listening Apple Podcasts or Spotify or iHeartRadio, all of those. Thank you very much.
Wherever fine podcasts are sold.
Yeah. If you're listening to us somewhere, give us a like. But Keith, go ahead and stay on the line. I'm going to go ahead and cut this off. Dustin, any jokes to bring us out that I can cut off and edit to make?
Yeah, why don't I start telling you a knock-knock joke, and then you'll just turn the thing off, and then I don't have to think of an answer.
And I will giggle every time I do that.
That sounds great.
You've been listening to the Know Their Story podcast. If you made it this far, we must be doing something right. Let us know by subscribing to our channel.
And think about sitting down with the veterans in your life, because saying thank you for your service should be the beginning of the conversation, not the end.